1. First, let me start out saying I just discovered the Mandela effect back in the beginning of May. I didn't even know time loss was a thing with it. For the past maybe 3 years, though, my family and I started noticing time was going too fast. So much so that my kids, teenagers, noticed it, and it very much bothered them. It bothered me more, you can imagine. The past 2 years, I can say, passed like I have never experienced time pass. I thought I was going mad, but my 17-year-old son brought it up. Of course, time going faster than 60 seconds a minute, 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours a day, and so on is impossible, so it was dismissed as simply weird. Then I discovered Mandela effect and actually asked about the time thing, putting 2 and 2 together. I got some replies of people feeling similar, but then out of nowhere I started seeing posts here and there regarding the same thing. I was actually embarrassed being my post was presented as it was my own observation, when clearly people have noticed it and were discussing it. But I honestly saw nothing on the subject until I put 2 and 2 together and inquired with others about it. But into my proof, well, at least for me. On 4th of July, I went to Amazon to place an order. I have Amazon Prime, and needed the items in 2 days from the 4th. So I went on and shopped a bit, with the intention of having my order in before midnight. I was shopping late after 11 p.m., so it was about 8 minutes to midnight on July 4th when I put the order through. I know for a fact that I had 7 or 8 minutes remaining to midnight, and it only takes seconds for an order to go through once you click place order. But when my order details came out just a few seconds later, it said my items were being delivered a day later than I was told by their little clock. I then looked at the time and it was 12:08. But I had just put my order through, and was sure of the time. I was sure of it, so I went to check what went wrong, but the date of the order said I did place the order on July 4th. I know I did not black out. Being my daughter was right there with me, I notified Amazon to get my order delivered on the correct day, and told him what happened. He checked the order and fixed the delivery date, saying it was weird. I would have no idea I lost 15 minutes if it wasn't for the date of delivery being messed up. I don't know if my words express the weirdness of this. The second it took me to press place order, and it only takes about 3 or so seconds to go through. But in just those seconds, the time jumped from 11:52 p.m. on July 4th to 12:08 a.m. on July 5th. About 15 minutes passed in seconds. I know it wasn't an incorrect time on my Android either, being we had TV on and the clock was the same, being my daughter was keeping me updated on the time to make sure I put the order in on time, to get that order in 2 days. She had something for herself in this order and made sure to keep me on the clock. So there's no way I made a personal mistake with time. I had plenty of time to order. I knew what I wanted and only messed around looking a bit more, since there was time left on the clock to do so. Amazon has a countdown clock that tells you exactly how much time you have to place an order, in order to make sure you get your stuff in 2 days. I needed this order in 2 days. It takes only seconds to place another order if I had found something else I wanted. I know this, so I wouldn't have risked this order showing up late or shopping and adding something else onto my order. So this is the first time I had proof of time flying by in seconds. 15 minutes would cut time down by a fourth, which would turn a year of 12 months into a year of 9 months, if this happens regularly going unnoticed. I feel time is passing at least that fast, and possibly even more. It really makes you feel as though you're crazy. 2. This happened to me just recently. I got this dream. I was at the beach with some people I wouldn't usually hang out with. We all just sat there and talked around the fire roasting marshmallows, when suddenly the watermelon rolled off the table. It smashed in the ground and made a huge pile of just melon. When I woke up the next morning, everything was fine. After a few months, I had the exact same dream. I just thought it was weird, but I just let it pass. Over the next few weeks, the dream would recur almost every night. It was 2 days before my birthday that I last got the dream. The next morning, my mom asks me what I wanted to do for my birthday. When I said I didn't know, so she decided that I'll have a picnic at the beach and that I should invite everyone in my grade. I cringed at the thought. She always tried to get me to make new friends all the time, but I liked the friend that I had. But she printed out the invitations anyways and made me hand them out at school. The next day was my party, and by that time, the dream completely slipped my mind, even though I previously just had the dream. I went to school and everything. And then we went to the beach to set up. The party started at 5, and surprisingly almost everybody showed up. It was a sunny day, so we were all playing in the water, building sandcastles, etc. At about 7, my mom called us back for cake. So we ate cake, and I opened presents. Then my mom said, "Everybody get lined up for an epic game of Capture the Flag." The game lasted about an hour. When we were done, a lot of people had to go home, because it was like 8. So, just like 10 other people were still here. We were just sitting around the campfire, roasting marshmallows, and I kept getting feelings of déjà vu. Suddenly, I felt really obligated to stand by the table. As I stood by the table, I kept getting vertigo, and I felt really weird, as if something was supposed to happen. I looked back at everybody, and I realized that they were the exact same people from the dream. I looked back at the table and I saw the watermelon. I waited a few seconds and sure enough, it started to roll off. I thrust out my arms and caught the melon when everybody stopped. It was dead silent, and they were all looking at me as if I had done something wrong. The looks on their faces were enough to scare me so much that I almost peed my pants. One by one they all said, "I have to go home." Even my mom sounded a little weird. As we drove home, I grew very tired. The next day when I woke up, I asked my mom what happened at the party. She looked very confused and said, "Sweetie, your party isn't until 5 o'clock. Side note, for those of you who are asking, I'm 15, and I actually ended up not having my party at the beach due to the weather. Side note too, she's not actually my mom, I just call her that, she's my sister. And second, we played Capture the Flag because I'm a huge Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus fan. And if you read those, you would understand why. 3. I'm the first one to admit that I'm an absolute disaster magnet, and I've had a handful of near-death experiences so far. It's a terrifying moment each time, but comforting to where I'd go. Ever since, like, the third near-death experience when I was around 7 years old, I would wake near a man, my husband, each and every time. The curling of his lips, I was so happy to see that smile each time that welcomed me. Thinking back on the first time, it was comically horrifying. I'd never dreamt of a fairy tale wedding or having a family for that matter. To this day, I haven't really changed my stance on that. Yet I was joyful to be in that environment with a husband and daughter. Anyways, through each time, I've studied this man's physical features and generally the way that he made me feel. I've never been comfortable with any man even to this day. I'm so uncomfortable except with one. Personally, I've never really thought much on the truth that could be behind these visions. I would say that, but give each man an extra look, admittedly. I would hope and pray that I'd catch him walking by one day, but it never came. So I met this man years after hearing about him, since high school. He went to another school about 3 miles from mine. He dated this girl who I could never really get along with, but I was friends with all her other friends. My friend went to the same school as he and kept in touch. She invited him over and I was absolutely stunned. He had short, sandy blonde hair, and piercing hazel eyes were the beginning of familiarity. The soft vertical crease in the tip of his nose, which wrinkled to each time. when he laughed internally, raising pale cheeks speckled with light freckles. The unique raspiness of his voice I had also heard before. The heart shape to his face led his jawbones to familiar gauged ears. I had been told so much about him, but never shown an image. My friends assumed that I couldn't stop staring because I found him attractive, but it was so much more than that. I was all but convinced that he was the man in my visions, a slightly younger version, but it's him. I briefly panicked in his presence, but very quickly did we grow a bond. As I said, I'm so uncomfortable with men. I'm almost 22 and this man was my first date. Over roughly 5 hours, we walked out with pet names. We would call each other one half of an anime couple. We're the worst. I felt like I've known this man for years. I've told him about each instance expecting disgust, but he was really okay with it. Though he's never had visions like mine, brief dreams he's admitted to, a woman with long straight black hair in a light and dark blue military suit would come to him. At this time his then fiancée, the one I could never be friends with, had short blonde hair and would wear a black and white dress for her job. There's plenty of women that fit his visual description, I included. I had never told him until this point that I'm in the ROTC program and wear a light and dark blue Air Force uniform every once in a while. Further details that he fits. Once in my vision he walked in with a guitar. This man is a musician as well. I was sick once in my vision. He says that he'd call Eric to check me out. Eric is now my brother-in-law of 3 years and is my regular doctor. We were talking once, and correctly called my brother-in-law by his name and occupation. He said that he doesn't know where it came from, it just kind of fell out. Once in my vision, he was painting my long nails. I doted on how weird it was to have long, slender fingers with long nails. I was a child when this time occurred. I returned thinking how horrifying it would be to have long nails. My short and stout fingers, along with anxiety-bitten nails, were the normal. Now, as an adult, I have those long, slender fingers with long nails that I stopped biting a few months before I met him. His first compliment was actually my nails. I'm weird, and absolutely just want compliments toward my nails that I work hard not to break. I can go on and on about the similarities that I see now. I'm not sure what these visions could have been, or what they even mean. 4. About 10 years ago, a friend and I decided to visit our mutual friend at her university and spend the weekend with her. All 3 of us thought this was the best idea ever, so we decided on a weekend and headed out once I was finished with classes on Friday. For this trip, we had very detailed directions from our friend at the university, as she'd made this drive herself several times by then. We knew exactly where to turn, what towns we were passing through, and even which towns we should avoid speeding in. I believe we made 2 stops on the trip, one to a rest stop and one to a gas station. We began in Fort Worth, Texas, taking I-35 down to the loop around Waco before traveling down TX6 till we reached Texas A&M in College Station. My friend at A&M told us that the drive should take about 3 hours. Well, nothing went wrong on our drive, it seemed to take forever. We reached Waco in no time and headed down to TX6. We were enough ahead of rush hour that we didn't really hit any traffic. I don't remember exactly at what point down TX6 that the woods started, but I do remember traveling through these woods for a long time, perhaps an hour. They seemed like they would never end, and we were already well past the 3-hour time frame my friend had given us. When we finally reached College Station, it was nearly 4.5 hours since we'd left Fort Worth. I thought maybe my friend's estimate was off, or that she sped the whole way or something, because there was no good explanation why it had taken us so much longer than it took her. We didn't get lost, we didn't hit traffic, We didn't stop for more than 5 minutes at a time. We didn't really think much of it at the time. We just wondered why it had taken so long. When the trip back was a little over 3 hours, we thought it was weird but quickly forgot about it. It wasn't until my next trip to College Station that I realized something had been strange. I spent that whole next trip watching the long path through the woods that we'd been on the first time. Except, I never ended up going through any wooded area for longer than 15 to 20 minutes. The entire trip took me about 3 hours, as did every other trip I made out there in the 7 or 8 years that my friends spent living in College Station. I want to say that we got lost, but we followed the directions my friend had given us carefully. We used my GPS to be sure. I want to say we were mistaken about the time the trip took, that maybe it only felt long, but I and my friends watched the clock carefully. I don't know what happened, and I've never been able to replicate it. I still wonder about it every now and then. 5. I think I've died a few times and switched dimensions each time. Okay, well, to paint a picture, I'm transgender, and back before I transitioned, I lived a pretty shitty life of partying all the time and being an idiot. Well, the first time that I think I died, I was driving around, hammered one night with a friend, driving like an idiot. I was going about 70 in the middle of a small town that I was not familiar with, when out of nowhere a 90-degree turn jumped out at me. I flew into the woods and literally went flying in between a telephone pole and the wire connecting it to the ground, and missed multiple trees. I literally flew in the woods and didn't hit anything. Anything big, anyways. I was able to back out and drive away. Second time, I was riding with a friend, and he was driving like an idiot, and a deer jumped out onto the road while he was going at least 80. He slammed on the brakes and tried to swerve around it, but it sent us into a 180, and we flew off the road. On the side of the road was a huge embankment going down pretty steep, and instead of flying down that, we slid into a tree stump. Literally would have rolled down the hill, but the only tree stump in that area saved us. We were in a Cavalier, so we definitely would have died. Third time, I don't want to get into much, but I tried to do something really stupid that involved mass amounts of Xanax. I was in a really bad point in my life. I took around 30 milligrams. I'm also really skinny, so that's a lot, and wanted to end it. Was miserable before I was out as trans. Ended up waking up in the ER and was told it was a miracle I survived. Apparently my mom found me unconscious in the bathroom, and I got rushed to the hospital. This one is the only one that I feel I could possibly have just survived. Fourth time was an honest accident. I wasn't being an idiot. I was on a 55-mile-per-hour road and a deer jumped out in front of me. I tried to swerve, but I was in a top-heavy 4Runner that was lifted some and rolled into a wheat field. To this day, I don't remember getting out of it before it caught fire. I remember rolling, then being outside of my car in the field just laying there. And I didn't fly out of the car or anything. I was wearing my seatbelt. A minute later, when I was walking to the road, it burst into flames. I would have been in them if I didn't make it out somehow. Which I don't remember doing. I think I died in each of these instances, and jumped dimensions every time. Or at least died once. I also noticed different Mandela effects that other people don't remember. I remember the Bernstein Bears, with a burn in the beginning, not Beren. I also remember Noreko shavers, not Norelco. I definitely believe I might have died and had my consciousness switched to a new universe, before anyone mentions how stupid I was. I know I was. I wanted to die in this period of my life, so I didn't really care. I just did what I wanted to do. I just thought I'd share this. I'm either the world's luckiest woman or I've died multiple times, but wasn't allowed to move on. Maybe it wasn't my time and the universe had to course correct. Or maybe quantum immortality is real. I think something definitely happened though. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, number 45. I would of course like to say thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'd also like to apologise if my voice sounds a bit rougher than usual. I had one of my bad acid refluxy nights last night. Entirely my own fault. I left it too late when I ate dinner, so I lay down to go to sleep, and, well, the bad stuff did its thing, and I woke up like my throat was on fire, and I won't give you any more details because it's not a pleasant ending. I've just got one more video to record, the paranormal one for Friday, and I'm going to give my voice a rest. I was hoping to record the next part of that Jack and the Space Empire story tomorrow, but I'm probably just going to leave that to the weekend now. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.